So let's add up what one episode actually costs you. You've got the outline, the recording, the editing, which always takes longer than you actually think it will, especially if you're doing it yourself. You've got show notes, graphics, scheduling about it, posting about it. It could take anywhere from 4 to 8 hours by the time it's live. And I know some of you are probably nodding out there because it could even be more than that. And then the title, which most of us write in about 90 seconds at the very end in a little box right before we hit publish. So 4 to 8 hours of work, potentially, 90 seconds of working on that title. And the 90 seconds decides whether anybody actually hears the episode. And so that's what we're going to fix today. We'll dive into what a title actually is, why the clever ones are working against you, and how to write one that gets found on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and now the AI tools as well. Hey friend, welcome back. I'm Tammy Munson, and I've been wanting to dive into this one for a few weeks. So are you ready? Okay, let's get into it. Let's start with the thing that changes everything. And it's a question almost nobody asks. Who is your episode title actually for? Now, many podcasters write titles for their existing listeners. The women who have already subscribed, they follow them, they're invested. They show up for every episode, no matter what. And here's the thing about those women. They are going to listen anyway. She doesn't read your title and go, maybe I'll listen to that episode today. She sees your show in her feed and presses play because it's Friday and you're who she listens to on her Friday morning walk or commute. Now, your title didn't earn that. Your relationship did. So if your loyal listener doesn't need the title, then who does? Well, it's the woman who's never heard of you, who is sitting there late at night with a specific problem, trying to find answers on the internet. She's not searching for you. She may not even know that you actually exist. What she's searching for is the thing she needs, information. And your title is either the answer to what she typed or it isn't. And that's the whole reframe. Titles are a discovery tool, not a creative outlet. It's the front door for people who just don't know you yet. Which brings me to the hard part of this episode. And it's going to sting a little bit for some of you. And I may get some notes, and that's okay, because I love reading your notes. But here's the thing. Your clever titles are killing you. They're killing your podcast. And I know, they're fun to write. And we sometimes feel that little spark of excitement when we land on a good one. Maybe it's a good pun or a cute turn of phrase. But friend, that spark is not helping you. It's entertaining you. And I want to be fair about where this comes from because it's not necessarily your fault. Clever titles used to work. Back in the big blogging days, when people found you by browsing, by clicking around on a random Tuesday afternoon, clever worked when discovery was casual. But discovery is not casual anymore. Now people find things by searching for exactly what they need. And nobody in the history of the internet has ever typed a pun into a search bar. So let me give you a few real examples so that you can hear the difference too. In doing research for this episode, I came across this title, Let's Taco About Consistency. It's very cute. And the episode itself was actually really good, but nobody found it. Because the woman who needed it was searching for how to stay consistent when you're burned out, which is what the episode was actually about. It just never said so. Another one I recently saw was The Mic Drop Heard Around the World. Now, that episode was about what to do when nobody listens to your first episode, which is quite honestly one of the most searched things in this entire space. She had the answer. She was just putting a costume on it. And then there's this one that we see quite often, at least I do. Episode 347, a mid-year reflection. That tells us nothing about that actual episode. And for someone who is searching for specific information, it's giving them nothing. It's giving them no reason to click on. That episode is for the existing audience. So let's say those two versions out loud. Let's taco about consistency versus how to stay consistent when you're burned out. One is cute and funny. Maybe it's a joke that you tell yourself. The other is a hand reaching out to somebody who needs it. Now, during a recent strategy call, one of my clients actually pushed back on this one with me and said, whoa, wait a minute. Isn't this going to make my episode sound generic? No. And I loved for her pushing back and asking that question. But what it does is it makes your podcast sound useful, which is a completely different thing because your personality lives in your episode, within your podcast. Your title is just a signpost. It's not a performance. So let's talk about where your title actually does its work, because there are 4 main places right now, and most podcasters probably only think about 1 or maybe 2. Okay, so let's start with Apple Podcast. Now, many people don't realize this, but that episode summary, that episode description that you put in there, Apple doesn't actually use it as a ranking signal. Not your show notes, not the paragraph you wrote 4 times. Apple search runs on your show title, your episode titles, and your author name. That's essentially the whole ballgame for them. So let's think about what that means practically. On one of the biggest podcast platforms, the title field is doing almost all of the discovery work by itself. So every keyword you've carefully worked into your Apple descriptions has been sitting there, uncounted. So there's 2 practical things for Apple here. Is first, front load the keyword. So Apple truncates titles that are too long. So if the searchable part is at the end, it may well not as be there. That's why I say, well, you shouldn't put episode numbers in your title at all. But if you absolutely are going to do that, put them at the end. That way it doesn't get missed. Second, in Apple, the author name field is a ranking signal. So you want to make sure that it says your name the way people would search for you. Okay, let's talk Spotify. Now, everybody knows that I have a love-hate relationship with Spotify, and Spotify always plays by different rules. And honestly, in this situation, they're actually a lot kinder. So Spotify does use your episode summary, your descriptions for ranking. So all of that show note work that you've been doing actually counts there, which gives us a nice division of labor. Titles carry the search terms. Descriptions carry the context and the extra keywords that wouldn't nicely fit in a title without making it look, for the lack of a better phrase, ugly. It's the same episode, 2 different jobs, both working. Now, one thing about Spotify, though, is, in case you're not aware, is your first line or 2 of the description is what shows in the preview. So put something real in there, not something like, in this episode, Tammy discusses X, or in this episode, we discuss ABC. We want to lead with the actual promise, whatever the hook is. Okay, YouTube. YouTube is the 2nd largest search engine on the planet. And all the data that is coming out now and for the last few years, is that there is a huge amount of podcast discovery that is happening there right now. So even if you're just uploading audio over a static image, you're still in the game here. So if you're not doing that, you need to be doing that. But YouTube is quite different than Apple or Spotify in one important way. It's not a search platform necessarily. It's a more of a browsing platform, which means your thumbnail is doing as much work as your title, sometimes more. And so here's where I want you to look at what other people are doing who are really excellent in this. Mel Robbins does a fantastic job with it. Allie Worthington also does a fantastic job with it. I'll drop the links for their shows in the show notes for you. Their thumbnails are not the episode title. There are 4 or 5 words that will stop you mid-scroll. You're not going to find things like how to stay consistent when you're burned out. That's the title, and it's doing the search work. The thumbnail says something like, stop forcing it. You're not lazy. 4 words, big impact, readable on a phone from across the room. The title is for the woman who is searching. The thumbnail is for the woman who is scrolling. 2 different women, 2 different jobs. So in YouTube, write the searchable title in the title field and then put 4 to 5 emotional words or hooks on the image. And if you can read it at a glance while your thumb is already moving, it works. If you have to squint, it does not. And number 4, it's a relatively new one, and almost nobody really is talking about this yet in terms of discoverability, but it's AI tools. ChatGPT, Claude, Perplexity, whatever other one you want to use out there. Because women are going to these places and are asking them real questions. What's a good podcast about starting a business as a Christian woman? What should I listen to about burnout? And the AI is answering with specific shows, specific episodes. It's a recommendation engine. And most podcasters have no idea that they're in it. So how do you get named in AI? Well, the rule is pretty simple. These tools cannot cite what they cannot read. They don't listen to your audio. They read text, titles, show notes, and above all, transcripts. Now, I'm sure some of you out there are thinking, whoa, wait a minute, Tammy. Apple already makes transcripts for me. And you're right, it does. Apple auto-generates a transcript for basically every episode now. And your listener can read along and search inside of it. Spotify is also doing something very similar, although the rollout still isn't universal. Some shows have it, some shows don't. Spotify also lets you upload your own transcript through your host now, which is better because you're not stuck with whatever the robot heard. But here's the part that matters, and it's the thing almost nobody has put together yet. Those transcripts live inside of the app. Apple's transcript is a feature for the person already listening in Apple. It's not a page on the open internet. So when ChatGPT or Claude or even Perplexity goes looking for something to cite, it isn't browsing around inside of the Apple Podcast app. It's reading what the internet has for it, which means Apple made you a transcript and it genuinely helps your listener. That's great, but it does almost nothing for you in the AI search. So what do you actually do with that? Well, the simplest solution is put your transcript somewhere that the internet can read it. A page on your website is usually the simplest version. 1 page per episode with the transcript on it. If you already have a website, you can easily do this. If you don't, this is probably one of the best reasons I know to get one. Now, when I say publish your transcript, I don't mean paste that raw otter file with every and still in it. Clean it up a little bit, add your headers, add your links. And you're not just checking a box for a robot. You're making a readable page for a human who might land there first and then go listen. And so I know this is like, oh no, one more thing. But here's the encouraging part. Because there is one. Getting cited by these tools almost has nothing to do with how big your show is. The research that's out there right now is really clear on that. And it has to do with whether your words are readable, specific, and actually answer the question somebody asked. A small show, an independent podcast with clear titles and published transcripts can absolutely get named ahead of a much bigger show that thought, I don't need to bother with that. And that, my friend, is about as fair of a fight that you will ever get in this industry. And you can start winning it this week. Now, I know some of you have been sitting there this whole time thinking, Tammy, I just asked ChatGPT to give me my titles. I know you do. And I'm not going to tell you to stop doing it because I use these same tools. Let's look at this. If you type in, give me 10 podcast episode titles about staying consistent, and here's what comes back. Unlocking the secret of consistency. The consistency blueprint. show up, stand out. Every single one of them is cute. Every single one of them is vague. And not one of them is anything a real woman would ever type into a search bar or into AI. So why does that happen? And I think once you understand it, you'll never be surprised by it again. These tools, these AIs work by averaging. They've read millions of podcast titles, and most of these titles are exactly the clever, vague kind we just spent this entire episode talking about. So when you ask cold, it gives back the average of everything that already exists. It's not being lazy. It's doing precisely what you asked it to do. You just didn't give it enough to work with. And it doesn't matter who your listener is. It doesn't know she's after a Christian woman in her 40s who started this podcast after her last kid left home. It doesn't know what she'd actually type in the middle of the night when she can't sleep because she's worried about this thing or she's in this hard season. It doesn't know what your episode is actually about underneath the topic. You know all of that. AI knows none of it unless you give it to it. So if you hand it a blank page, it fills that blank with the average. And the average is exactly what you're trying not to sound like. So let's flip the script. Don't ask AI for a title. Do the search sentence yourself, the way we just talked about. Then hand it over and say, hey, here's the exact sentence my listener would type in. Here's who she is. Here's what this episode actually gives her. Now give me 10 options that answer her search in plain language. No wordplay, nothing that sounds like AI wrote it, and let's do it in 60 characters or less. Now, if you're using Claude, you can set up a skill to do that. This is not an AI show, so you can go ask AI on how to do that specifically. But I want you to try this and see what happens. I would bet it gives you a completely different list because now it's working with your strategy instead of substituting for it. That's the whole rule. And it's the same rule as everything else with these tools. You bring the strategy, it brings the volume, never the other way around. And listen, even then, you still pick the one. You read the 10 out loud and you choose the one that sounds like a person actually said it. Because AI can generate tools all day long. That's what we love about it, right? But it cannot tell you which one is true about your episode. It could give recommendations, sure, but only you know that. I want to say something that I think is important because this isn't just about SEO and how to use AI effectively. And I don't want you to miss the point. Proverbs chapter 25 verse 11 says, "A word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in a setting of silver." Fitly spoken. Not a clever word, but a fitting one. The right word in the right setting at the right moment for the person who needs it. That's what a good title is. It's not decoration. And it's not a performance of how creative you can be. The right words arranged so your person, your listener, the woman who needs them can actually find them. And every time you choose clever over clear, you are quietly choosing yourself over her. And I don't say that to shame you because y'all know this is a judgment-free zone up in here. But I say it because once you see it that way, the whole thing gets infinitely easier. You already know how to put her first. You do that in every episode that you put out. Now, you do it in the title too. Before we get into practical steps, I started something a couple years ago that I am weirdly proud of. And it's called 52 Tips. It's one podcast tip every Tuesday in your inbox from me. It's not a newsletter you have to set aside time for, even though we do have that. It's not a course. It's a one tip kind of thing that I text you if we were friends in real life who happen to talk about podcasting. Something you can read in a minute and actually use that same week. It is completely 100% free. And it's the easiest way I know to keep getting a little better at this without adding one more big, gigantic thing to your already full plate. All you got to do is go over to wildfirecreativecompany.com/52 tips. The number 52. So as always, it's in the show notes. Okay, let's get to the practical steps. So here's what I want you to do. And I'm going to give you the actual framework that I use so that you have something to hold on to. I call it search, check, fix. 3 steps in that order. Step 1, search. Write the search. Then write the title. So before you name the episode, write down the exact sentence your listener would type in that when she needs this information. In her words, not yours. We're not using podcast consistency strategies. We're using I can't keep up with my podcast, not audio quality optimization. While it's very important. She's not typing that in. She's typing, why does my audio sound so horrible? That sentence is your raw material. Now let's build a title that clearly answers it using her words whenever you can. Step 2, check. Run it through 4 quick questions. Number 1, could a new listener tell what this episode is about with 0 context? If not, rewrite it. Check 2. Does the important part come first? Front load it. Titles tend to get cut off, so make sure the keyword is at the front, not buried at the end. And if you've got episode numbers, flip that. Episode at the end, keyword at the front. Check number 3. Is it roughly 40 to 60 characters? It's long enough to be specific, but short enough to survive that truncation, that display cutoff. And number 4, would you type this into a search bar? If the answer is no, then nobody else will either. Okay, now step 3, fix. Go rename your 5 best episodes. Not all of them, 5. The 5 you're proudest of. The ones with real substance that deserve to still be working for you. Pull up each one and ask what somebody would type to find this. Then rename it to answer that. You can change the episode titles right now. It's just metadata. Nothing actually breaks. Those episodes are already recorded. They're already edited. They're already published. That work is done. You're just putting a findable sign on a door that has been unmarked the whole time. And if you do nothing else from this episode, I want you to do this one. 5 titles, 1 afternoon. You'll be amazed at what starts getting discovered. Before we wrap up, I want to say this. Don't feel shame or guilt or anything about this. Nobody really ever taught you this part. We got taught how to record, how to edit, how to show up every week, how to batch, all these various things. Titles sort of just got handed to us like it was the most obvious thing in the world. But they're not obvious. They're a real skill. And now you have it. Your listener is out there right now, searching for the information she's looking for by typing that information she's looking for into a search bar, into AI. And you have already made the episode that gives her exactly what she needs. So go put a sign on it so she can find it. Thank you so much for listening today. Remember, you can love Jesus and analytics, and life is way too short for boring podcasts. I'll talk with you next time. Bye, y'all.